Everyone, Bruchim Aboyim. Hope this mic is going to work now. Can you guys hear in the back? Yeah, we can hear in the back. If we could have everyone come closer so we could start. It's a Shnas HaChazok of the Kinnus Torah that we have here in Iagdil Torah on Shavuos. So it's a special time. Chazaka means that we have a responsibility for the years to come. Be'ezrat Hashem, with the coming of Mashiach, to have a Kinnus Torah.
Taking out of us too.
And a great shkoyach for Rabbi Shmuel Zalmanov for always being there for us to make it happen. Okay, so posting with Var Malchus. So the question with Kinnus Torah in connection to Matan Torah, there's something very interesting here. Now, from one side, we receive the Torah at Matan Torah and Shavuos, a Torah that's Talmud HaMevili Demaisi, right? It's a learning of Torah that has to bring to an understanding of what we have to do, how are we going to fulfill the mitzvahs, how we're going to serve the Eibishter. That's from one side, Talmud HaMevili Demaisi. But on the other side, we have this idea of a Kinnus Torah, which is Iagdil Torah Montreal, like the Gemara says, which is Lav Davke, has to do with Halacha L'Maisa. It's a union of discussing Torah and delving into Torah, into topics, that are, bring us deeper in the learning of Torah. So in a sense, we have here this contrast. From one side is a Talmud HaMevili Demaisa Davke, right? A learning that brings specifically to the fulfillment of the mitzvahs. But at the same time, the Torah requires us, the Eibishter requires us, that we should learn Torah in a way of Afashalo, in a way of Iagdil Torah V'Yadir, right? In a way that we learn Torah Lishma, for the sake of Torah, for the sake of the Eibishter. And one could ask, how could we bring these two together? How can we learn Torah in a way that's maybe the Maisa, and at the same time learn Torah that Lav Davke is maybe the Maisa? That's Iagdil Torah L'Adira. So the answer is that when you learn Torah in this way, meaning with these two opposites, but you do it because that's the way Torah requires from you to do, and that's the way the Eibishter requires from you to do, then we have the koyach to be able to learn Torah in such a way, in a way of bli gvul, in a way of gvul, in the Lashon of Chassidus. And what's interesting over here is the famous Maisa that's running in the Gemara regarding the ones shenichnasu lepardes, right? And only Rabbi Kiva nichnas b'shalom v'yotze b'shalom. And the question is, why does the Gemara have to say that Arba nichnasu lepardes, nichnasu lechoiro, and then Rabbi Kiva nichnas b'shalom v'yotze b'shalom? Lechoiro, the only chidush over here in the story is that Rabbi Kiva is yotze b'shalom, that he went out b'shalom. But the nichnasu, everyone came in, right? Nichnasu lepardes, everyone came in the same way. And the chiddush is only that Rabbi Kiva yotze b'shalom. So why does the Gemara have to stress this idea of nichnasu? So the answer is, meaning, and not only that, in Rabbi Kiva it says nichnas b'shalom v'yotze b'shalom, right? To stress that Rabbi Kiva is nichnas b'shalom. So the answer is that Rabbi Kiva Melchatchila came in a whole different way than the rest of his Chaverim. He came in with knowing what his tachlis is, that it has to be yotze b'shalom. So his nichnas b'shalom was in a way that he's going to be able to go yotze b'shalom, and that's why at the end he was able to be yotze b'shalom. The same nikud is here. You could have the learning of Torah in a way of bli gvul, and the way of learning Torah in a way of gvul. But that's only when you do it because the Eibishter tells you to do so, the Torah tells you to do so, and that's how you're able to have these two opposites. So, All right, so we'll start our Kinnus Torah. We have here Choshev Rabbonim and Shluchim and Avreche Koiler, Yungelait, Balabatim, all together. So we'd like to give the honor to Rabbi Avram ben Shimon, the Mechaber of the Sfarim of Tzofnas Paneach HaMevur.
Zozan Mevur.
Zozan HaMevur, okay. What's the Lashon? HaMevur, Zozan Mevur, okay. Which will speak to us about the union of Takonos Chazal. Please, give me your undivided attention.
Du kan reden Jiddisch, no? Alles dein... Like you said, Rav Shochat, there is Tere LaHalocha and Dat LeMaise. When I bring from the Rogachover and this, God Shas, is not Davke Halocha LeMaise, it's not Tere. Takones Chazal, many Takones in Shas. Tachomim Tiknu. Is the Takones sometimes, the Rabbonon, it becomes Yosef Bal Timur. Takone, when there is no difference what will be better, the situation changes or something, it's a takone, a din. Sometimes it's not a mishmeres and mishmarti. He brings many dugmois in Shas. Even Shabbos is negia lahalocha. Some Shvus, the Rambam started Shabbos, Perek Aleph, this is midirabonon, Isurim midirabonon. He brings few examples, and then Perek Chof Aleph, Chof Beis, Isurim, Chachomim, Gemacht Isurim. So sometimes it's a Shvus be'alme, midirabonon. Sometimes Chachomim gave a Geber of a Melocha min HaTeirah. There is the Moshe Milches Boine min HaTeirah, Chachomim made a Boine midirabonon. He's Asach, and he brings from the God Chas and the Lochas. I think as the Alter Rebbe is there meduyek. Sometimes the Alter Rebbe in Shabbos, he says Shvus. Sometimes he says Shvus Gomul. If someone will take to work on this to see when it's a Shvus, Shema Yovel Melocha, or the Chachomim gave a Geder from a Melocha. The Kopanim Geder Takones Chazal. We could think sometimes Chachomim made it hard. And more chiyuvim, and more punishments, and more... so it's lav davke. Yisurim de Rabbonon is a Yisur Gavre, not a Yisur Chertze. It means Chachomim made the Yisur for us. It's not that the subject itself is forbidden. For example, in Psochim, Daf Mem, Aleph, Gemara speaks about how to make matzahs. Is Ein Loshin Ela B'mayim Shelonu. You have to take the water before the Shkia, and it stays overnight to be cooler a little bit. And then Isha lay Tolush Bachamo, Velebechami Chami, not in hot water, not in this. When Isha needs two kelim, Echot Shevekatefes, Vechot Metzanenes Yodeo, to make it cold, not to get. And if not, if she didn't care, you take some water from the sink, not Maim Shelonu. Is one day it's forbidden to eat the matzahs, one day is Muter B'diavad. You have to be very careful to make it cold water and not under the sun and not hot this and מים שלנו. If not, it's a shayla if it's lalocha b'di'evad only. If you're not sure, it's muter. Rav Ashi or Mamuter, Rav Memre Mamosu. And then we see in the Gemara, בצקס של נוכלים, ממה לאודום קרייסה מהם, ובלבד שיהיה כזייס מצה באחרינו. The matzahs for the first night has to be לשם matzahs mitzvah. If not, stam matzahs לשם mitzvah, you are allowed to eat, but you are not yoitze kazayis matzah and afikimon. So the Gemara says, if you have betzekes shel nochlim, a goy made dough, botzek, he brings it to you by the seder, memala odom kreise mehem, you could eat what you wanted, you are full, but at the end of the meal, you should eat kazayis matzah shmure, l'shem matzahs mitzvah. Rashi brings, Rashi Mefarash, du kennst der Kennen of the botzek, you could see if it's chometz or not. Because the Gemara says, Simonim, botzek, when it is machmitz, shenizdak, kekan echagobim, you could see that it starts to split, or the decoller, or the... If you don't see the Simonim, it's okay. If I will make the matzahs, you tell me you have to do it in 18 minutes, in cold water, and this and this and this. A goy brings you dough. You think he used maim shelonu. He was careful to finish it in 18 minutes. He made it like this and this, not under the sun, under this. Is the Ramban asked, all the Rishonim, was the Pshat, Rashi Zogs, Rashi brings us, La Locha is okay. Memal le'odom kreise me'ekudim this. So the Gosher explains, Chachomim made a Gzeiret, Takone, is only a Fa'id. And Takone is La'akum. Not the Takone of the Goy. When a Takone for you, Aid, you should be busy in the mitzvahs, make the matzah, the Shem Matzah's mitzvah, on this, be careful, very good. But mitzvah din, the Botzek is okay, even if a Goy did. There is another truth for the Gosher, if Aid a Meshumet, brings to do. If it's like a mamish like a Goy, also lekule, that it's okay or not. From this, the Gosher goes to all the Gzeres Chazal, Takones, is only on Bnei Yisrael, not on a Goy. It's the Moshe Chol of Akum. Chol of Akum, the Gosher writes that Isur Be'etzem. Some from the Achrayim, they bring that maybe it's a Sofek, it's a Isur Be'etzem, mamish Osur. Only Yisrael Ro'eu. But if the Goy made from the milk butter, Chema, it's okay. מכיוון שלא הגו להחמיר, but הפidin is בסדר. This brings אין אקום שויטה. הגוי did שויטה to mix milk from another animal. He knows that butter could make only from this. Cow, the milk shell. Not going to mix the chazim. אין אקום שויטה. So if the goy made butter from the milk, you are allowed to eat. If you buy the milk from the goy, and you want to make from it butter, also. It's a Isur Be'etzem. Now I'm sure it's milk from a cow. You see it becomes butter? No. Chachomim Gi'aser. Cholov is, afilo as better who is gifin asinit, Cholov Akum is forbidden. If the goy made it, is okay. It's another dug me yain nesek. Chaviyah shel yain nesek. You have a chobis, the goy made wine. You have the chatzanim and zag, what did this? After you base chodesh, it's okay. You could use the barrel. If you buy it from him, you use the barrel, make wine. The Rosh says, it's only if it was by the goy for your base chodesh. If you buy the chovis from the goy right after you made the wine, it's also, this will never go. It's forbidden, yain nesech in the chovis, it's 10 by year, 10 years, it will be by you, it's also. If the goy, ishna ba goy, motish gemach the gzeres, and this, simuto. Something that ain't base pras la'akum. Ain't akum is base pras. Soda shenechash bakever. You know, so someone made a charisha on a grave. So the chash is the bones could get etzem kiseor till 100 amo. But en bres pras la'akum. If a goy did it, a kever fa'ib. And a goy did base pras and then he gives you the field, it's kosher. Why? All the gzer is chachomim. Takon is only a fa'ib. Nish legavi goy. Al a goy in shum gzeres. And this kama dugmoes in the mai, in the ger. If I become a girl, and he tells you I was careful, I didn't touch the wine. For you to buy wine from a girl, it's a, maybe it was in Nisach HaVezor, you're not allowed, because he made it when he was a goy. But the girl himself, he was borili שלא ניסחתי, בזכר this, he's okay. אף הגוי נשתוק עם גזרת. עוד תקון יש מנהוג זה לא נעים. ומדנס ברינק תרנוך הגמורה. אז the Charoises, Pesach, is matbil the chasa, the more the Charoises, to hargen the toilas, which is inside. Some of the enforcement matzvah is not a toilas, but if it's a worm, mali chayo, mali meiso. Dead or this we're not allowed to eat. But the Rishonim, Rabbeinu Hananel, the Rashbam, and the Alter Rebbe Shulchan Aruch, he says, lahargis a toilas. Kofodot meit a toilas, to hargen it. How come he is mutter? Teloim. Is the middle which are ayin, in Tosefte bichlal steht. That is okay. The teloim in the vegetables is beseder. Because Shmuel, the Gemara that Shmuel had as nicht. But when the Teisve says, if the majority, the most of them, rubom beteloim. But if you have less than the roiv is beseder. Teisves brings also, not only if it's roiv teiloim, to eat vegetables and this and fruits and this is beseder. Simis asek, your carbon is to eat the lettuce, not the teiloim, beseder. As the Rambam had, as epsidor miut, Motzui, dran das der Miut. Peres darkom להתליה, Peres was die derech as die gut fein. So dran lo yoicha la chiil do ka prim mitaycher. Don't eat till you check the prim mitaycher. Was ist die Blicke? Ist die Gemara sagt, Aisha neemenes al Blikas Peres v'Yerokes. She's trusted, even if you find after that insect, it's okay. Till when she's not trusted anymore, אלא אם כן נמצא חוימת, מתחת יד, לפי הגנצה ליזרד. הגנצה, but if that's bottle, זה עכשיו בringt mich mit Misasek. Was ist die Takone in Chubes, bringt er mich over. Die Takone is that miut amotzu, we took the halacha, if it's miut amotzu, you have to check. So the Gemara says, only if you buy it from a goy, or you receive a present from a goy, bring you strawberries or something, and you know that it's darkom להתליה, so check, wash and check. But if you don't buy from a goy, es ist ein real Dusch, wie Gemara wird es sagen, Oichel min a-heftek. You sit with a guy, and he has strawberries he wants to sell it at the market, and you eat together with him. Lo tzorich livdoik und gar nicht. Die Takone, Bdike und das, danke להתליה, if you buy it or you receive it. You Oichel min a-heftek, you will do this בסדר. נשתות עם שום דרך. Also, der Wissen war, dass die Missasse. Ich will jetzt essen die Strawberry, die das. Wo ist die Frage? Ist die Bottle. Die Gemara sagt, dass Missassek Bachalovim, Ba'aroyes, ist nicht Bottle. Ohne die zwei Sachen, aber was ich kenne, Chelev, die Anoe, die Isum ist in die Anoe, ist ein Mensch Missassek, und nicht gewusst, dass sie Chelev. Die Fismano, it is Chayev Chatos. Und Berdo in Teloim ist nicht Shaykh, nein. Und dann in Teloim is a breakfast. The Maise, I don't want to sell a Maise, but we use many rice. The deal is only if you buy, so we say, I know it's a lucky. ראיתי מייסר רב, כי זה אני סתם, למשמש בקוידש. Die Achreinim, sie machen von den 5 Lavim. There was this, from the Achreinim, he said if you eat lettuce, the frui, the woman prepared is Chayev Malkes Kesar Roisho, like the hear what she has, but it's not. The ganze Ding ist mit der Rabbonon, so dass Rabbonon ist echt eine Sache. Mit der Rabbonon als Berry ist nicht Bottle, mit der Rabbonon ist ein bisschen checken, aber es ist nicht mit der Theo. Ist, macht nicht kein Chiyuv Malkes. בקיצר, the nekuda is, החכמים, זה מלאת הקונף הרעיל to be busy in mitzvahs. Be careful to buy chalov Israel, be careful in this, you eat the fruit, check. מצד המצווה to do it. And you want to bake matzahs, do it מתעלי חומרס, מתעלי הידורים. but מצד איזה חצר, ועוד גיגסן הזה, זה בסדר. אין לי כמית המייסק, יזוק את המול הזה. זה חמד, it brings in his sefer, אתה רגיל לשמוע כאלה דברים? תוסיף מים לחבר, להזדחם את ברינקס. אז שומעתי מהרב רב יואל שרמן, in the name of Rab Hillel Paritcher, in the name לצמח צדק, in the name of Izayde, the Alter Rebbe, in the name from the Magid, בזויש המגיד. אז the limud zchus of the crazy placing, Rabbi Nosson Leibeshitz. He says in his Sefer brings that the milben, the teloim, what we find in the kemach, in the flour, and this and this and this, he says that it's not beria, once his bottle, because beria is only if nesar mitchilas briose. One of the noim of beria to be isoberia, not bottle. If it's like atchila gibon, from the beginning it's also. But here it's only after shepiresh. Because before shepiresh is mutter, that's what is bottle. It's a machzedek in Chuvas. He says not to rely on this. You have to check and this and this and this. But Baalpeh, it's a machzedek dot Rabbi Paritcher, and this is the Magi dot Gizot. This is okay. Limud zchus at the end. That's בסדר. You check. You don't buy. נשבר משיגים. כל פעם דוסי לימוד זכוס at the end. אל תקון את חז"ל. ומתום. תקון is not a zaid. Du sein busy mit der Rebester, mit der Teire, mit der Dos. Nicht חדשה, הם תשובה שלכם חיובים, מקלס כלל, נשתות לכם. זה לא לחיובים, לא למייסן, לא למייסן, אני לא רוצה לסמוך על זה. זה רק להלוכת. מה אתה אומר לזה? יש על אלינו. יש אורי בני יוסף.
This is Shkoyach. We still didn't figure out this mic, it's a new one. I'm sorry. Okay, the next is we have Rabbi Moshe Fisher. He's a Magashir in Zal, in the Yeshiva Tom Lubavitch, and also in the Mesivta Ateres Menachem. And we have the honor to have him with us here today. He's going to speak about the inyan of Godel Kvoid Abrius. Please.
Organizing the beautiful Kinnus Torah. Behemshich to the Yom Tov of Shavuos, of course, many Inyanim of Shavuos. One of the Inyanim know that Shavuos is also the Yartzeit David HaMelech. The source for that is in the Yerushalmi. Yerushalmi says David Beis Ba'atzeres. In Bavli we find something different. The Shabbos says that the day David's Istalkus is on Shabbos. The Shaila, that the two things could work together according to our calendar now. Shavuos and Shabbos. The first day of Shavuos can't be Shabbos. That's a discussion for itself. So in the Gemara in Shabbos, Aflam, it talks about the union of David's Istalkus, the famous Gemara. The story of David asked the Eibishter, the Enya, Shem Kitzim, the Shalmai, all back and forth between them. The Eibishter told him the day of your Istalkus is going to be on Shabbos. I was going to say a little bit of the story, which is not yet the halach, the union we're talking about, just for the Hira, the message, the chizuk of it. David asked the Eibishter, maybe he could change it. He doesn't want it to be on Shabbos. Rashi says why? Because they won't be able to be misasik. If the Hesped, the Kivurah, Shabbos is limited, he was trying to push it off, to change the day. So he says, almost be'echad b'Shabbos, let it be Sunday. The Eibishter says no. It's already the time for Shleimus. We can't push him off. That's his time. So the David say that I'm mevater if so. Let me go back. Erev Shabbos. The Eibishter says no. Das nicht. Amalei ki teiv yoim b'chatzerecha meyodef. The pasuk that David HaMelech himself says in Tin. What's the teiv yoim? Teiv li yoim echad shati yeshiv basic b'teira. One more day that you're here in this world and you're sitting b'chatzerecha, you're sitting in Beis HaMedrash learning Torah, is worth a lot more to me. Me elef eilis she'aseh shleim min chol ha'aktiv. It says by Shleim as Yaakov elef eilis. The Shleim is ingen es samigdash and karbonis ameri di gezach. But to take away from one day of David's learning Torah in Beis HaMedrash, there's no not mevater on it. You can't go away a day earlier. As many days as you have, it's precious to me, and I'm going to use it until as much as possible. Akoponim, the Hemshech HaDvarim was that it was Shabbos, and David was every Shabbos the pasuk kumim migirse. Malach HaMavis can't approach him. The Maisa that they came is the Eibishter's Ratzon is Niskayim, so he found a trick, and David was mafsik for a minute, and he was Nistab. The Hemshech to that, Shleima's son sent a Shaila to the Beis HaMedrash. He had two Shailas. Well, what are the two Shailas he had? So Shleima the Midrash. Abba Meis Mutal Bechamet. The father passed away. The place where he was, the story was that he went out to a garden, a bustin, an orchard behind the house. It was in an exposed area. He's in the sun. The person's nifter is in the sun. It's not going to be a covered within a short time. It's not going to be covered on mess. He wants to take him away from there. But if a mess is muktzeh, and if he doesn't have a use on Shabbos as muktzeh, so he has the issue of muktzeh, but he needs to protect him from the sun. What should he do? And then you had another shayla also. What did they answer from Beis HaMedrash? The Gabi, your father, first they answered the other shayla, and then they said, Gabicha, hanachol of kikere, tinlik v'talkel. So there's a heter they gave that put on to the mess something which is not muktzeh. The example they gave, kikar, I guess things that are common, easy to find, a loaf of bread, or a child, things that are not muktzeh, put it on, and then together it can be metal. Another place it says, it's not a heter to be metal for every muktzeh in that way, to just put on it over a mutter. This is a specific heter over here because of it. Okay, so this is what we find over here, that he gave the isur muktzeh, the metal the mess out of the chama, out of the sun, which should cover the mess. You needed the heter. What's the heter? The heter was to put on something which is not muktzeh, kikirete. That's what it says in Perigba Memadlik. Later on in Sech Shabbos, it's near already. There's a story in the Gemara that happened in somewhere in Babel. Who's Shich with the Hava B'Dreikra was a city over there, and it's a person that passed away. And again, they had an issue about protecting the Kovid HaMes. Doesn't say in the Gemara clearly what it was. Rashi says either also the sun, like in the previous story, or maybe there was a fire burning, different possible issue. What does the Gemara say? Rav Nachman Yitzchak was matir for the Yitzhak here, it doesn't talk about the muktzah. The Gemara doesn't talk about it. The muktzah was taken care of, but there was in order to protect him, they had to do a yitzhak. He was going to say yachid, and they had to take him out to a carmelist. The Rabbanon is also, we know the carmelist is like the Rabbanon al derech Rishus Harabim, it's Rishus La'atzmai. So you can't be metal to say yachid to a carmelist. And Nachman Yitzchak was mad. He said you can take him out from the place where he's in, say yachid to carmelist. So the Gemara was asking if it's not just tzlicha l'gufa. Here, the nekuda he says in the end is the head is not as much as tzlicha l'gufa. The head it is because Godin kveda bris shedeiches leisas shebetei. The Lashon Gemara brings kveda bris has a koyach to be deichel leisas shebetei. Now leisas shebetei the Rashi right away brings the Gemara Masechtas Bracha says it doesn't mean a lav deirais mamish. It means one specific leisas deirais, which is leisasu. Leisasu min adover she'agidu l'chol. The Torah tells us to listen to everything the Chachamim are saying. Gosh, what Ben Shimon was talking to Yonah and Zayis the Rabbanon leisasu. So basically, Yisurim the Rabbanon themselves, those hey mamru, they were gezer the Yisurim the Rabbanon. They said the makom kveda bris, when it's needed, they'll remove the Yisur that they made. So to be mitzi the master of the carmelist, they saw the carmelist is only the Rabbanon. But in kveda bris, memele, you can be matter, you can take him out to the carmelist where I guess there was a shaded area, whatever the situation was, that over there the mess would be protected. These are the two Gemaras. Comes this is Asakash. This is wait a minute. The Gemara, we're dealing with two Yisurim. We dealt there with two different Yisurim that Rabbanon, right? Before we dealt with the Indian that the mess itself is muktzah. It's already Yisur of Tilkum muktzah. And here we dealt with the Yisur of Hitzam Sayachad Likarmelis. Here by the Yisur Hitzam Likarmelis, what we see in the Gemara, we didn't find any Chochmas, any Eitzes, any Yatedim on the Yisur. We said we're deichel the Yisur because the problem of Kveda is. That's it. You can just do it without finding a way that it's not mamish doing Hitzah. Even though it's Hitzah the Karmelis, it's the full Isur, but we're deichel. We're deichel because of Kveda B'lis. Why, if so, when we were dealing with Isur of Muktzah before, why couldn't we say the same thing? Tiltul Ames is Tiltul Muktzah, it's only an Isur Rabbanon. Kveda B'lis, deichel Veisasek, Kveda B'lis. It should be just deichel Isur of Muktzah. Why do we need to find it's a different head to kikirating? That's what this is asking. So this answer is Yeshloima. Shani tilpul the efshra de kikiretine. Okay, a simple answer, Davar. And a chanami is if we need to, we'll be deichel the Yisur Rabbanon. However, the Gabe the Yisur Muktzah, we have an eitz, we could do kikiretine. No, it's miyay. Why not? If we have a way to be matir the Rabbanon without being deichel completely, we have a way of doing it in a way that's not mamash aser, because the Yisur is like after the heter, so it's better. So here by Yitzhak the Carmelist, we don't find a way to make the Isser not be there anymore. There is going to be Yitzhak the Carmelist, there's no way out of it. So Kveda Bris would do. But Muktzah that we have in Eitz, we have the Eitz of Kikiretin. You have the Eitz, it's better to use the Eitz than to outright be Mevatel Bris. That's what this is. Comes from Kibegi Gilin Hashas, and that's a very strong Kashi. Kashi is not the Gemara in Shabbos. Gemara is in Pedikire, in Gimel. So there it talks also about the singing of a mess which is mutal bechamo, or a mess which is in a place of a sreifa. And the Gemara over there also discusses this. All the pratim of the Gemara, which they were good, machlekes and Rav and Shmuel. The Gemara over there says as if you want it over there to be mitzi, there it talks about the Isra of Muktzah. So we say if there's a kikirei tinik, like that eitzah that we gave by the story of Shlomo HaMelech, this is the very early eitzah setter of the Rabbanon, back with Zman Shlomo. You have kikirei tinik, for sure that's an eitzah. You can find the kikirei tinik, you can be metal to the mess. What if you don't have a kikirei tinik? So we're there talking in the case of a fire. So it says there's a machlekes tanai. The Gemara says as when it comes to the mess being in a place where there's a sakana of a dleike, it can be burned. So the person on the bowl al mesa, the person is very anxious, he's very worried, it's negei benefesh, such an Indian, the chas v'sholem should be consumed in the fire. Not to be mounted to the person, to be metal to the mess, to take him out. The result might be, without thinking, he might even end up putting out the fire, which is much more humble than being metal to the muktzah of the mess. So therefore there's a shita that if you don't have the kikirei tinik, and you're not able to be you have the heter of kikirei tinik for the muktzah, and you're worried because of the Adam Bowl on Mesa, you might put out the fire, then in order you shouldn't come out to put out the fire, then we're going to be matter to take out the mess, even though it's moved. The biggest kasha is, again, what did the Gemara say? We're talking here in the matzav, you don't have the kikirei tinnik. L'chayre, if you're missing, you don't have the eitz of kikirei tinnik, why don't we just go back to the basic law that the etzemei yitvei dabri is the chitz of the rabbanon. Why here is it becoming a whole problem, and only if Adam go along Mesa, I'm worried you're going to put out to stop you from the bigger Aveda. That's why I'm going to give you the head. But not for the sun. And we saw before that by Carmelists, we're l'chatchila matter to be made to the domestic Carmelists. Why? Because I don't have a way to take away the Yisr. Mitzat Kfei Dabris, I can be Deichid the Rabbanon. So to by Muktzeh. Be'etzem, I should say, Mitzat Kfei Dabris, I can be Deichid Muktzeh. Elamai, when you have Kikirei Tinnik hostel, if you don't have, that Kfei Dabris, be Deichid the Muktzeh. Why is the Gemara saying? Only because we're worried for the Sreifin, and therefore in another case we're not going to be mad. Let's give a discussion. You do all the other thing that Alter Rebbe Shulchan Aruch is writes in a very smooth lashon, and lashon azov. You do the lashon puts in biurim and tirutzim on the many difficulties that the Mefarshim Tachlenim talk about. This is a thing in which we can find in Alter Rebbe the way he explains the halacha. It says over there an answer to this kasha. Other achredim also get to it. It's in this lashon Alter Rebbe we can see it. This is in Sivan Shin Yud Aleph, Sif Gimel. So he says a word like this. Lo yitiru mishum kved hames, ele isur ha'yitzor lekarmelis. We saw the story of Nachman bar Yitzchak. Yitzor lekarmelis moimatim mishum kved hames. Why? She efsher l'saknei klal kishetzrichim. There is never a way to take away the isur of Yitzor lekarmelis. There's no way you could make it not apply. It's always going to be there. And when it's needed for the Kved HaMes, the Kved HaMes, we'll matter that is. Aber the Yisur of Muktzeh, ki mishe efsher l'sakni, yadi sheyital kulim edover ha-muter, b'derech klal, normally there's a way to be l'sakni, you shouldn't have the problem of the Muktzeh by adding the dover ha-muter. Therefore, lo yitiru b'shuming, afilu ein lo dover ha-muter. Aber b'dleiki b'vad yitiru, b'shum shebayavei l'cham. So what comes out from Lashon Alter Rebbe is that there's a certain inyan kloli. It means the Chacham were down on this Isur and this matzah that they have. The Lashon, the Isur of Carmel is Ilegabe Emes. The Isur of Muktzeh Ilegabe Emes. So when they were down on the Isur of Carmel, you see right away there's no way to make it that there shouldn't be an Isur of Carmel. Kavod Abris will be back on the Isur of Carmel. Mashenkim when they're being down on the Isur of Muktzeh Ilegabe Tilkul Emes. But even clearly, there's a way to do it better. It shouldn't be hard to find. In almost all cases, you can do it. So they didn't see a need to cancel the Isur of Muktzeh for Kved HaMes. See, even in the unusual case where there might not be a Kikirei Tinnik, the Isur remains in place. In other words, it's not if he's that in every matzav, in every individual story, could I say now Kved HaBli is Deichel Eisach? It doesn't work like that. That's not on every case you come to the Rav, you start the deal again. It's the Chatchila Nichel Takonis Chachamim. Because there's such a call, Kved HaBli is Deichel Eisach, the Chachamim said, and decided on matzavim that could come up these and these isurim for these and these matzavim. But even clearly, what is it? Do we need to have a tchi of this, or we don't have to need to have a tchi of these? So since the Gabi Muktzeh b'derech klal, there's no need to be deichid the Muktzeh, so they kept it in place, and in the Mele it doesn't change, even in the case when you don't have the heter, the eitz of the Kikirei Tinnik, it's not going to change anything. A lot more time. The next, the Hemshech is a little bit more. Well, I should say the Kudu B'Kitzir. The same word you see here in Kivei obviously didn't understand like that. It comes up in another Inyan also, the Chesitzis. Another place where we say the Inyan of Kved HaBli, if somebody is outside on Shabbos, if it's a Carmelist, and Ikir Adin, most streets today are considered a Carmelist, and you realize that the tzitzis are possible. Tzitzis are possible, so the Gemara says, you go walking outside, it's Eitzah, because the other chutim that are still on, they're not bottled because you're planning to be mashed, but they're not serving any purpose, you're not mekayim mitzvah tzitzis. So it's like you're carrying a masu, you're carrying a load. There's chutim that are still on the tzitzis, b'shas they're not kosher, is Eitzah you carry. No, so the chayre is if you realize while you're outside that the tzitzis are possible, so you can't continue walking with it. You're carrying outside. So that caramelist, you have to take it off. So the Gemara says in the Machis, if it's a caramelist, if it's only a drabanon, so the same cloud. Kol adabri is deichelis as the shebetayda, deichel the issue of caramelist. You can continue wearing the tzitzis even though it's like a masli if it's only the drabanon. That's what it says there. Shemar when Avram brings from Beis Yosef. That was that l'chayre. You could say that maybe that was only bismaneim. They would wear the tzitzis on begodim, which was like a regular beggar. The talus was like a coat or something that they wear. That was part of their regular set of clothing that they wore, and they had tzitzis on it. It was also Arabic conference. But bismaneim knew what's a talus. It's a separate beggar that we wear only the shem mitzvahs talus. The person removes his talus, is he going to look undressed? He's not undressed. He's just not wearing the talus. If l'chayre felt technisch in kveda, there's no bizoyin of the person if he's going to take off his talus. So maybe Bisman as the hefter shouldn't apply. Maybe you would have to take off the talus if you realize that it's possible when you're outside the carmet. But the Yosef says no. It says the Chacham were already mapped this inyan of a talus that became possible in the carmet. So that remains for every talus. Even now, our talus, there's no kveda. So you will ask, what does that mean? The din is kavod abris is deichen issa der Rabbanan. Right now, there's no kavod abris. There's no problem with kavod abris. Why should it be mutter? But if we go with this other way of understanding it, that it's not that in every case we start talking again, do I have kavod abris now or not? It's a matzav kloli. A matzav of a tzitzis possible on Shabbos. If the kavod abris, b'zman ha'chachamim, there was kavod abris, so they made a din that a talus is nifsol b'karmelis, you don't have to take it off because of kavod abris. Since they were misakin, it remains on every time that there's a talus. So if you go both ways, sometimes we say that there is kavod abris, but since Bechlal there isn't, so the heter isn't out there, you can say that now there's no kavod abris, but since Beifin Kloli is man chazal upon him, this kind of thing, and had kavod abris, so the issue was nitche on the same, according to this place. We learned otherwise, but this is another mahalach that could come out. It would explain the singing of the Kam Haloch is got to kavod abris, the translation is Shabbatayah. Shabbatayah.
Very much, Rabbi Fisher. Next we have Rabbi Rafal Ben Simon, who's a Magachir and Mesifta Rishis Chachmeh. Thank you very much for joining us. He'll speak in the inyan of Oisek B'mitzvah Patim and HaMitzvah in learning Torah and how it connects with the inyan of Kabbalah and Torah V'Simcha.
Apologize for the false advertising. I thought it was perhaps Divrei Agadol. So thinking about Isaac and Mitzvah as it relates to Talmud Torah. First, before I begin, I feel chayva to express hakaras hatoiv publicly. That even though most of my years of learning, I learned in Utashi yeshivas, but the first Torah that I learned was by Chabad. My family moved from Montreal to West Palm Beach, Florida in 1982. And there was no chinuch, there was no place for us to daven, no Mokum Torah. And my father had a yechidus with the Rebbe. He went to go see the Rebbe in 86 or 87, and he asked him to send somebody to West Palm Beach. And he sent Reb Shlomo Zagwi, who's still close to our family till today. I'm sure many of you know him. And he sent, my father's a Moroccan who spent many years living in Montreal. He sent a Moroccan from Montreal. So, and that began our family's journey. The first Torah that I learned how to read a Siddur in the shul. Many times we didn't have a minyan. The Talmud Torah on Sundays. And Baruch Hashem, my family was inspired closer and closer until my father moved further south. I went to school in Miami. And he still works in West Palm Beach and was still close with the Zagri family. So I have a lot of hakaras hatoiv. My mother got a voice note from Rabbi Zagri that she heard I'm speaking at something called the Kinnus Torah. And she said, "You're speaking?" I didn't tell her. And he said he happened to have been in Montreal, And Punti saw the zettel, he saw the sign, and he left a voice note. Look at this, Harav Hagoyim. It also could be false advertising. Harav Hagoyim, Rafal Ben Simon. He says, look at that. You know, many years later, you got to see a little bit of nachas that he's speaking, Baruch Hashem, by Chabad event.
And he's my father's cousin.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, because his wife is a shach.
Oh, I didn't know.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so express my kasatoy that could be more important than anything else that I'm going to say. We know Klal in Kol HaTorah Kula as Oisik b'mitzvah is potter min ha-mitzvah. The Mishnah in Sukkah Daf Chafei Amud Aleph Shluchei Mitzvah P'tur min ha-Sukkah and other Amarei Chazal. There's one notable exception to this general rule, that when it comes to Talmud Torah, we find that if a person is Oisik in Talmud Torah, in not every case is he potter from another mitzvah that threatens to interrupt his Limud HaTorah. The Rambam in Perek Gimel, in Hilchos Talmud Torah, Halacha Dalet, the Rambam says, Hayu lefonav asiyas mitzvah b'Talmud Torah. So the klal is like this: Im efshar the mitzvah le'osei al yidei acherim. If the mitzvah could be accomplished by others, it's gemilas chesed, other people could do it. So the halacha is lo yafsik talmuda, you should not stop learning. V'im lav, but if no one else can do it, for example, tefillah, kriya shema, you can't make a shliach to daven for you. You have to itiyash le'osei al yidei acherim. So yaseh ha mitzvah. So then you have to interrupt the limud Torah and accomplish the mitzvah. The Rambam fears ois the yachzor l'toirasei. The Rambam says you have to go back to your learning. So this Rambam is based on the Gemara Meikot and Daf Tes, the Gemara Shabbos, Daf Yud Aleph, that when it comes to mitzvah sheyesh le'osei idei acherim, so you have to be mafsik from your learning to do that mitzvah. It's not true by every Oisik mitzvah. Every Oisik mitzvah, if you're involved in a mitzvah, you're potter from tefillah, from kriya shema, even from mitzvahs that can't be done by others. But when it comes to Talmud Torah is andrish. Talmud Torah is, you have to be mafsik for a mitzvah that can't be done by others. But the Rambam Firzois, he ends off his halacha, v'yachzor l'toirasei, the old Girsois is l'talmudai, the Frankls, they change it to l'toirasei. What's the Rambam telling us, v'yachzor l'toirasei? The Rambam is giving us encouragement. The Rambam is not a Mussar Sefer, it's a halacha Sefer. What's the Rambam teaching us when he tells us v'yachzor l'toirasei? So, it's bavust the pshat, in the Shulchan Aruch Harav, Alter Rebbe Shulchan Aruch, he says that there's two dinim, two chiyuvim in Hilchos Talmud Torah. There's one chiyuv that a person has a chiyuv eisek ha-Torah tamid. A person has to always learn, but he's available to learn. He has a chiyuv to learn. There's another chiyuv that a person has to have a yediyah of kol ha-Torah kula. Kafi his madrega, kafi his asaga in Torah. He has to learn the body of Torah, Torah Shebechsav, Torah Shebal Peh, that we have written kol ha-Torah kula. That's the second chiyuv on a yid. It's a Gemara in Menachos Daf Tzadi Tes that Ben Dama, who was Ben Achoyse, Shal Rabbi Shmuel, asked Rabbi Shmuel, K'goyin Anish, Lamaditi Kol HaTorah Kula, Ma'ani Lilmoid Chochma Yevonis. Can I learn Chochma Yevonis? I learn Kol HaTorah Kula. And he says you have to find a time that's Lo Yoyim V'Lo Ylayla is a mitzvah of Agisa B'Yoyim V'Layla Lo Yovash HaTorah Sefer Torah Azeh Mipicha, that you have the Chiyuv Eisek HaTorah Tamid. So Avamina was that he was Mekayim, his Chiyuv to learn Kol HaTorah Kula. Yitaka was Mekayim, one Chiyuv, one aspect of Hilchos Talmud Torah. But Rabbi Shaul's mechadish to him, this is the second aspect. There's a chiyuv eisek ha-Torah tamid, so you're not potter just because you learned kol ha-Torah kula, not learning bite. So, Zok the Alter Rebbe, he says that that you have to be mafsik from your learning for a mitzvah she'esh she'las tzadei acherim is only, he calls it a bittul zman mu'at, a temporary bittul. It's a bittul in the Eisek HaTorah Tamid, in the first din of Hilchos Talmud Torah. And for that, you have to stop learning, be Oisik in the mitzvah, and go back to your learning. But if it's going to be a bittul in your yediyas of Kol HaTorah Kula, of your chiyuv, to reach the Madregas HaTorah that you're capable of reaching, so then you're not potter from, then you can't be mafsik your Torah for another mitzvah. Then you're taka potter from another mitzvah. And you have to keep learning. You can't stop learning if it's going to be nishter. A bittul elamis, he calls it, to your madregas ha-Torah. He's masbir al pi that the Rambam in Hilchos Ishus by Ben Azai find that the Rambam paskins per tazvav Hilchos Ishus halacha gimel misha choshka nafshe b'Torah tamid v'shoyge bo ke Ben Azai v'davok bo kol yoma v'lo yinosa isha. If he learns Torah, doesn't get married, ein biyodoi ovel. And it's mashal from the Rambam, the previous Rambam, that it's midin oisik b'mitzvah potem in a mitzvah. Chorta pelle, the Rambam holds when it comes to Hilchos Talmud Torah, we don't apply Yosef mitzvah pater min mitzvah on a mitzvah that can't be accomplished through others. Period. V'rivyas is certainly a mitzvah that's yeshalei also side achirim. So why is Ben Azai and those who are like Ben Azai that are nafshei choshka b'Torah, why are they potter from Talmud Torah? Ein biyadei oven. So the Alter Rebbe explains that Nechanami, if it would be a temporary bittul, he could get married and go back to his learning. So he would be chayiv to be mafsik talmudai, go do the mitzvah, the absolute Torah. But over here, Ben Azai is verstanden that it's going to be a shter to his madregas HaTorah, to his hasagas HaTorah, the way he is able to be developed by Torah. So Nisuin, period v'rivya, would be a shter to that. He wouldn't be able to reach his capabilities of Yediyas Kol HaTorah, kafi his hasagas. So then it would be a bittul elamis on his madrega. So then his learning taka patas him from the mitzvah proof. So after Rebbe's masbid, that's what it means for the Yachshel Terasa. The Yachshel Terasa means that if a person knows that he's gonna stop learning, he's gonna do the mitzvah, in Torah, in Tefillah, or Kriyashma, another mitzvah, the and he knows he can return back to his learning. It's only going to be a bittul of his manhood. So then you have a heter to stop learning and be oisik in the mitzvah and return to your learning. But if you would not know, if you would know that you can't return to your learning, you're going to have a bittul oilamis on your madregas HaTorah. It's going to share your ability to be masik Torah and kol HaTorah kula kafi your madrega. So then you would not have an excuse to be mafsik mitalmudai for another mitzvah. So the Rambam saying it tonight, and this that you have to be mafsik from Talmud Torah for a mitzvah there's a tonight. Only if you know v'yachzor l'Torah that it's a temporary bittul in the Eisek HaTorah Tamid, and then you'll return to your learning. I'll be this word from the Alter Rebbe. I thought you could be miyashiv Rashi, Yishver Rashi. And Sukkah Daf Chafei Amar Aleph, the Shluchei Mitzvah Tur Mina Sukkah. Rashi gives 3 examples of who these Shluchei Mitzvah are. Rashi says they're holchei l'dvar mitzvah. He gives 3 examples. They're hoilich l'hakbil pnei rabam. They're hoilich to do pidyon shuyim. And the 3rd example Rashi says is they're hoilich l'umay Torah. All the Mefarshim ask, the pellet, Talmud Torah alein is not parted from another mitzvah. She'ef shel asas haydei acherim. Sukkah is a mitzvah. She'ef shel asas haydei acherim. So how could hoilich l'umay Torah be parted from Sukkah if learning Torah itself is not parted from Sukkah? It's not parted from a mitzvah. She'ef shel asas haydei acherim. So alle stellen sich on this Rashi. The Asameach, Meir Simcha, in the Talmud Torah, is miyashiv al pi toisus in Sugas Daf Yud Zayin Amar Aleph. Gemara says over there that mevatlum Talmud Torah l'hitzos hames. It could be mevatlum Talmud Torah, it could be koivra hames. The Toisus asks a kasha from the Seches Derech Edzuta that Rabbi Akiva was learning by Rabbi Elazar of Yeshua, and he was hoilach b'derech. Pamachas he saw mes mitzvah, and he was metapel with this mes mitzvah daled mil until he brought it to Beis HaKvaros. When he got to Rabbi Elazar of Yeshua, his rebbeim, they asked him what happened. He said, this is what I was involved in. I was oisik b'mes mitzvah. So they said, al kol psiya v'psiya, you were shoifich dam naki. They held he did the wrong thing. You were coming to learn Torah. You were coming to learn by us. You were patur min mitzvah. You shouldn't have been oisik in the mes mitzvah. So the fact is that it's a steer to the Gemara. The Gemara says mevatlam Talmud Torah lohitzas hames. So Toisus brings a teretz from the Rini Kurbil that says even though it's true that when it comes to Talmud Torah, you're mevatel libura Torah for hitzos hames. Aber shimusha gedoyla mi limuda, shimush tamidei chachamim is greater than learning Torah, and for shimush tamidei chachamim you're not mevatel. You're not mevatel shimush tamidei chachamim for hitzos hames. Rabbi Akiva was coming to be mishamish, Rabbi Elazar and Rabbi Yeshua. That you're not mevatel for hitzos hames. You're not mevatel that for another mitzvah. So the Sameach is masbir, shimush tamidei chachamim doesn't only mean you come to carry their shopping bag and you're helping them with the groceries. Shimush tamidei chachamim means you're coming to learn by them. You're coming to learn how to learn. He mentions Rashi, Brachas Daf Mem Zayin. Rashi is going on the Gemara, Ezu Am Haaretz. Somebody was karav v'shana, the way shimish tamidei chachamim is an Am Haaretz. What does it mean, shimish tamidei chachamim? Zot Rashi, hu ha-Gemara, ha-toli b'svara, shayu noistem v'divrei mishnah tam, v'yu misastim v'oiskim yachad, v'derech ha-Gemara. Shimish tamidei chachamim means to zucharayin and learning, to be oisik b'Torah in a deep way, with Talmidim together, to be mefalpul in Torah, to understand the Tadei HaMishnah, the Svaras, that's Shimush Tamidei Chachamim. So Zotar Sameach, Alpidas Toisus, that when it comes to Shimush Tamidei Chachamim, that is potter from another mitzvah. Talmud Torah is not potter from another mitzvah. She'ef shalas tzadei acherim. But shimush Talmidei Chachamim is gadol milimuda, and that is potter from another mitzvah. So he says that this Rashi, that when they were hoilich, the shluchei mitzvah were hoilich lilmod Torah. Why couldn't they just learn in their shul, the local shul? Pshat is, they were going to learn from a Rebbe, they were going to learn in yeshiva, they were going to be meshamish Talmidei Chachamim, to get something, to develop themselves in learning, to build themselves up in their havana and learning, and develop their koiches in learning in a way that they couldn't do where they were. They weren't just sitting and learning. They were coming to build themselves in learning. That's shimush Talmidei Chachamim. And that takapatas you even from a mitzvah she'ef shalas tzadei acherim. So l'chayra, it needs to be understood. Why is shimush? It's gadol. It's true. Shimush Talmidei Chachamim is gadol from limud. But why does that already catapult it to a different madrega? That now that madrega all of a sudden is enough to pater you from a mitzvah she'ef shalas tzadei acherim. L'maisa, we have a cloud. The Talmud Torah is not potter from a mitzvah she'ef shalas tzadei acherim. Who told us that Sameach that all of a sudden when you get to Shimush, which is greater than Talmud, that Madrega already is enough to pater you from a mitzvah she'ef shalas tzadei acherim? What's the hesper of that? I think the Fiat Rebbe is very moving. That there's two dinim in Talmud Torah. There's an Esek Torah Talmud, and that taka does not pater you from a mitzvah she'ef shalas tzadei acherim. If you have a temporary bittul, yes, what terasa, you can stick to learn. But the Yidiyas Torah, the chiyuv to know kol Torah kula and to reach your madregas atayra, kafi, your koiches, your capabilities, that if it would be geshter, that taka patas you from a mitzvah, even a mitzvah she'ef shalas tzadei acherim. Shimush Talmidei Chachamim means when the Talmidim are coming to develop themselves, and developing their koiches and learning, they're building up their koyach svara. What's a good kasha? What's not a good kasha? What's a good svara? What's not a good svara? They're coming to build themselves and develop themselves. They're gaining the kelim to allow themselves to access their chelik and Torah. For this madrega of Yediyas Kol HaTorah Kula, this madrega that they're supposed to reach of Yediyas Kol HaTorah Kula, they're getting the tools for that with the Shimush Talmidei Chachamim. As Mamela, when they're going, when they're involved in Shimush Talmidei Chachamim, they're hoylech lulmei Torah from a Rebbe in a yeshiva. So that taka is a madrega of Yediyas Kol HaTorah Kula, which does in fact pater from a mitzvah she'ef shalas tzadei acherim.
Thank you very much. As you speak about the Inyan of Boisei Mitzvah Potter Ben HaMitzvah, and there's a famous beer. Why is it that Boisei Ben HaMitzvah Potter Ben HaMitzvah? Is because there's two nekudas in mitzvah, right? There's a nekud in the mitzvah, which is the prat in every mitzvah, right? The special mitzvah, which is every mitzvah is different. But then there is the klolus inyan in the mitzvahs, Ratzon Hashem, and Memela, when you do one mitzvah, you do Ratzon Hashem, so Memela you're included in that mitzvah are all the other mitzvahs. So that's why you potter from all the other mitzvahs, because you're actually doing now the Ratzon Hashem. Interesting. That also comes together with the inyan that we spoke about before, the two inyanim in learning, right? You have the learning in a way of Talmud Amevel the Maise, which is negea to protim, and then you have the inyan of learning la foshel or la Torah la tira. That's already the blikvul of Torah. The inyan of that inyan of Oisek ben Mitzvah Potter ben HaMitzvah. Next we have Rabbi Shmuel Weiss. He's a shliach in downtown Montreal, Chabad McGill. He's one of our regulars here in the Beis Medrash. He makes time, even though busy schedule and shlichus, makes time to come sit and learn and bring chayus here. He's going to speak about the inyan of Noshim and Sfiras Oimer. And even though we finished Sfiras Oimer, but I'm sure it has to do with the other mitzvahs and other inyanim b'meshech Hashanah.
Thank you, Shmuel, for arranging this. Kinnus Torah, we know how important it was. The Rebbe, Kinnus Torah, after Shalosh Gedolim, Frat, the Rebbe said, second Fabrengen, Pashman Test, Frat after Shavuos, which is connected to Torah. So to arrange, not only arrange it, but it's already a chazaka. So thank you very much. So, the Rebbe in Tov Pei Tes talks about the mitzvah Sisar Emer. It starts off mitzvah Hasem and Atej and Atejra. Sabbath Alach Mitzvah Shiva Sheva Shavuos. He goes and he gets into the where we know the mitzvah from Torah, and then different ideas of the bracha, and then Siv Beis says Nashim Avon Turim Mitzvah Zu Pnei Shu Mitzvah Aseh Shazman Grom. Women avodim are parted from this mitzvah because it's a mitzvah Aseh Shazman Grom. Yeah, and then the Alter Rebbe continues mitzvahs and dinas. Samu Anoshim Mitzvah Zu Alei B'Chayvu. Some places, where people, the women, put this mitzvah upon themselves as a chayva. He says it's not a problem that they're saying a brach on it. It says ayin simin zayin, which we already spoke about. This idea, the Alter Rebbe introduces this idea that mitzvah shazman grama, that even though not women are part in it, they can still make a bracha. And the Alter Rebbe says, the Alter Rebbe continues and finishes off the idea of different ideas in Sir Sa'ib. It's interesting, if you open up the Alter Rebbe Shulchan Aruch and Simin Yud Zayin, he starts off Nashim Avodim Turim Mitzvahs talking about cities, right? He says, he goes with the whole thing that women are part of the mitzvah, even though he introduces the idea of how to do it. Like it says by tefillin, right? Then then he says that if they wanted to introduce it, if they want to do it, they're able to do it. Like, and he brings down, just like later on in the Sivan, just like Shofar and Lulav. Shofar and Lulav, mitzvah Seishas Van Grama, it's a big mitzvah. If a woman wants to do Shofar and Lulav, not only they're able to do it, they're able to make a bracha on it. The Rebbe some tonight. The Rebbe doesn't add Sfiyas Ha'emer, right? He says Tefillin, he says Shofar and Lulav, and again, in Hilchos Shofar and Lulav, the Rebbe brings down again that women are allowed to do it, they're allowed to make a bracha, that's not a problem. But he doesn't bring down, he leaves out Sfiyas Ha'emer. The Pashtus, you could say that, Shofar and Lulav, they're big mitzvahs, Shoshana, that's assuming that women came to shul or always come to shul, and it's a big mitzvah, they want to do it. A lulav, assuming that everybody had a lulav at old times like we have today, that there's not one lulav in the city, or a few sets of arba minim in the city that everybody sort of was b'shutfus in it. Assuming that everybody had it was something like a mitzvah that was accessible and it was seen often. But Sfiyas Ha'emer is not, what do? You do might have in shul, women don't go to regular might have to shul. So assume, the pashtus, that's a very simple answer you could say in this thing. But again, assuming that all these shofar and lulav, it was accessible, and it was not in the way of Sfiyas Ha'emer. Today it's very accessible, but it wasn't always like that. Assuming number one, and also the Alter Rebbe is this idea that don't be worried that they're going to start a bracha, and the pashtus, the svar is they're going to start with the bracha, and then they're going to miss one day, and they're not going to do a bracha, they're not going to come to shul. Start with the first day, miss the second day. Alter Rebbe says is deicha that thing. They want to do it. Some mitzvahs mekaymis there that they added, that they placed themselves as a chayiv. It's very good, and they're able to do it. So this whole Indian Bichlal is a big Indian in the sugya, and yesh leinu b'derech hefsher, if it's even a question. So ba'abdama. So the Torah says, "Start the Chomer Shabbos, the Yom Yichim Zaymer Tenufa Shabbos Shabbos is means Tiana Baruch Shabbos, Ad Baruch Shabbos Shvit Tzibur Chamishim Akrat Baruch Chadash LaHashem." That's the pasuk introducing the idea of Sfiyas Ha'emer from after the first day of Yom Tov of Pesach till Chamishim Yom till the day before you count 50 days. So the Gemara in Menachos, famous Gemara says, Menachos that's some Vav Manal. Amar Abaya, mitzvah mitzvah shvut. It's a mitzvah. Abaya says it's a mitzvah to count the days, and it's a mitzvah to count the weeks. So not only you count the days, you count the weeks also. So the Gemara continues. Rabbanon de Ravashi monu yemo monu shvuya. Rabbanon de Ravashi would count not only the days. This is years after the Churban Bayis. They would count the days, right? Many years after the Churban, they would count the days and they would count the weeks. And Meimar, moni yemo v'lei moni shvuya. A Meimar would only count what? He would only count the days. He wouldn't count the weeks. The Gemara continues. Why? Omar Zeichel Mikdushu. It said that's a Zeichel Mikdush. Ad kam the Gemara adds. There's two ways that this Gemara is understood. Two ways to look at this Gemara. The first way to look at this Gemara is not a machlekes between the debate. There's no machlekes between Rabban Debei Ravashi and a Meimar. The only and why we do Sris Eimer today. The machlekes is what are we doing today? Are we counting days and we counted weeks? See, they counted days and weeks. He counted only days, right? And why? Because Zeichel Mikdash. Like Rashi Al-Asar says, Ha minyana dahashko lav chayvu. Minyana, the counting of today is not a chayv. The halakha Eimer, because you don't have a kaymer Eimer, no base Mikdash. It's not a chayv. If you look at the pasuk, it's a chayv because you have a kaymer Eimer. If you don't have a kaymer Eimer, it's no chayv. Ela Zeichel Mikdash. The whole Indian of Sris Eimer today is Zeichel Mikdash. And most of the Rishonim learn the Gemara like this. This is how most of the Rishonim learn the Gemara, and that's why, it's a machlekes, it's a mitzvah d'Rabbanan, mitzvah d'Oraisa. But you have the Rambam. The other way to learn the Gemara is actually a machlekes. There's a machlekes between the Rabbanan Debei Ravashi and a Meimar. Rabbanan Debei Ravashi hold that it's d'Oraisa. What that means, we'll get to in a second. It's a deraisa, and the same way by Bizman Hamikdash, you had to count the days and the weeks. You have to count the days and the weeks now also. And the Meimar says no, it's not deraisa. Today's the whole reason why we did was Zeichel Hamikdash, and that's the way the Rambam. That's the way the Rambam knows the Gemara. Like you see in Hilchos Midin Sofin, Perek Zayin. It's a few halachos of base with Chavdalit to quote. So the mitzvah says, "Least for Shabbat Shabbos the mitzvah. Yeah, but it's a Eimer. Shnamar start to come on Shabbos. It's the mitzvah to count Shabbat Shabbos. Like we said in Boston, start to come on Shabbos. Mitzvah one is a Yom Ima Shavuos. Days, mitzvah to count the days and the weeks. Shnamar Tisbul Chamishim Yoyim. Because a Yoyim Yoyim Lefichach Manam Alaylo. He goes to the whole thing in Melil Shisha Asa. Mitzvahs are called Ishmi Yisrael. B'chol Mokim B'chol Zvan. So this mitzvah is on every Yid on all times. No places in all times. It's not totally in Eretz Yisrael. It's not totally in Beis Hamikdash. You're always. You finish off Nashim Turim Mimen. You finish off Nashim Avad Turim Mimen. Kesef Mishnah on the Rambam explains that the Rambam is learning the Gemara that he learns like there's machlekes between the Rabbanan Debei Ravashi and a Meimar. And therefore, he passes like the Rabban Debei Ravashi, it's the Raisa, and because it's the Raisa, it's that Nashim Vadam Turim, it's a Shazman Grama. And the Magen Avraham also, Shulchan Aruch doesn't discuss this, but the Magen Avraham adds it. He says Nashim Vadam Turim, mitzvah Shazman Grama. And it's very good. If there's any mitzvah that you could show, l'cheira, that's a mitzvah Shazman Grama, it's B'yisrael Eimer, right? You're actually counting time. You're not from the first day Matzah Pesach, Matzah the first night of Pesach. Chamishim you're counting mitzvahs hasei shazman grama. It's zman. You're actually counting zman. Very good. The problem is that not everybody holds that it's a mitzvah. The tzviyas ha'emer is the mitzvah hasei shazman grama, and that opens up a whole new understanding of what's going on over here. You have Gemara in Kinnus Torah Gimel and Beis where introduces the idea of mitzvah seish man grama. Says Torah Bona is mitzvah seish man grama. Sukul lulav shefer tzitzis tefillin is mitzvah seish. Shaloi is man grama. Zul maka aveda v'shul chakar. Kinnus Haramban, Kinnus Torah Gimel and Beis goes and he says it's very interesting. It's Eza on this Gemara. It's Eza mitzvah seish man grama. Going sukkah Eza mitzvah seish man grama. Says Tana v'shayim. The Gemara is Tana v'shayim. It says some things. It's leaving things out. There's more things that are side mitzvah seish hazman grama and side mitzvah seish shalei hazman grama. And one of the things that he says Tana v'shayir mitzvah seish shalei hazman grama, he says tzviyas ha'emer is a mitzvah seish shalei hazman grama. It's not, and according to the Ramban, women are chayiv in this mitzvah. So everybody asks the Shaila, it doesn't make any sense. What's Pshat in the Ramban? Well, how do you explain the Ramban? If there's any mitzvah that is the quintessential mitzvah to show that it's a mitzvah Seishas Ban Grova, is actually counting time. So what's Pshat in the Ramban? And there's a lot of ways to do this. Some people say it's a Tayis Tfus, which was a Shail 100% through and through. That some people want to say the Ramban never meant this, it was a mistake, but that was Shail. But to answer the Ramban, there's two ways to understand what does it mean when the Torah says mitzvah hasei shazban grama noshim. What the gather chlal of mitzvah hasei shazban grama. And this is l'chayra the machlekes with what the Rambam is saying. The Magen Avram is passing with the Rambam l'chayra and the Ramban and everybody whoever holds in different ways. The first way is the pashtus. Any mitzvah that has a time, whatever it is, it has a time, a set time in the year. You don't do it every single day of the year. You're not chayiv to do it every single day of the year. You only do it a certain amount of time. That's a mitzvah sashay shazban grama. Very simple gerat. But you have another way of looking at it. And the truth is that this was, at least you see it clearly in the Chachal Shloimeh or Chaim Sim Tachav Vav, where it talks about Kiddush HaChedesh, Kiddush Levana. And Magen Avram says, same thing, women are parted from the mitzvah, nashim to the mitzvah, mitzvah she's like grama. Chachal Shloimeh, he says, he goes on a whole long piece, and he says he doesn't understand why it's a mitzvah shazman gram. Mitzvah shazman gram is that you're possible to do the mitzvah any day of the week, any day of the year, 365 days of the year. You're able to take a lulav and esrog, right, and shake it every single day of the year, right? Just the Torah says at these days it's a mitzvah. Shofar the same. You can blow shofar any day of the year, and there's many mitzvahs. But when there's a mitzvah that is totally in a zman, that is it's only shaykh to do it in this time and no other time, mitzad teva, not mitzad the Torah is saying that you only do, it's only meaningful, it only makes sense. You can eat matzah every day of the year. You don't have the mitzvah of matzah. It's only during Pesach, right? So when mitzad teva, you're unable to do the mitzvah. Right? That's not a mitzvah seishas b'agrama. That's what he says. The kiddush levanas is not a mitzvah seishas b'agrama. And he even uses, if I'm not mistaken, says, a woman's not going to be chayiv in saying shechianu, a fruit that comes only once a year. You have a fruit that's comes once a season. It's mitzvah seishas b'agrama. All of a sudden, a woman doesn't have chayiv. Of course she is. The reason why she's only now you're saying shechianu is because you can't get it all the time. So there's two ways to look at mitzvah seishas b'agrama. Is it stam? Anytime it's in time, it's a specific time, it's a mitzvah shazman grama. Or no, it's only a mitzvah shazman grama when you're able to do it every single day of the year. Shofar, sukkah, and v'chulu v'chulu. And now the Torah is telling you it's only meaningful to do it now. Kiddush, you can say Kiddush, you can say how special Shabbos is every day of the week. You have no mitzvah, you only have a mitzvah on Friday night. Shabbos day, maybe. Right? So the Parlo and the Sridi Eish, and for the Rambam, same way the Ramban, the same way the Chachal Shloimeh says this argues with the Magen Avram in the Kiddush Levana. They say that what the Pshat and Ramban is over here. He's saying that you cannot do Sfira Soimer the whole year. The Torah says from Matzah, the first day of Pesach till Shavuos, that is a time you can count every day, but you're doing nothing. You're not doing anything. Connecting with the Omer, but but you can count. And even the student the Eish wants to say, he asks the Shaila, and how does he find for the Rambam? He goes in a roundabout way. He says, why is there no Baal Pesach? If a guy decides he's going to count 100 days, there's no available Baal Pesach. Why? Because you're not doing anything. because it's only Torah only says it's 50. Counting chamishim. After that, it's not. You're not doing anything. Mashenkein. If somebody sits in the sukkah or sleeps in the, I think he says sleeps in the sukkah or sits in the sukkah with a bracha on after sukkah. It said, I'm doing l'shem yichud in order to make the mitzvah sukkah. He's over on baltais. Why? The Siddur says is because it's not it's not a mitzvah. You're not doing anything. So he said this is Pshat Ramban. It's not a mitzvah sashay shazban grama because it's not because you can't always do it. Therefore, the Ramban paskins that it's taka women are chayiv. So maybe you want to say that the Rebbe again, even if it is a question, the Alter Rebbe is paskining that it is taka mitzvah sashay shazban grama, Avram, like the Rambam, but you can't lump them in the same category as Shefer and Sukkah and other mitzvah sashes on Grab, because even though the Alter Rebbe is going to be paskening like this, that it's a mitzvah sashes on Grab and Nosham Potter, but it's a different gather. This whole thing, it's a different gather of mitzvah sashes on Grab. There's a different dharm in it, and there's a Ramban, and there's other people that say, wouldn't be considered mitzvah sashes? So you can't. So the Alter Rebbe doesn't want to lump it. So even though he in Hilchos Ha'emer, he's going to Zeichen Tzutz back to Hilchos Tzitzis, where he introduces the idea that a woman is able to do a mitzvah Sashay Shazvan Grama, but he doesn't use it over there v'chein, like he says v'chein b'shefer, v'chein belulav, because yes, it's good. We're going to talk about it, but it's a whole different gather. Some people want to I saw that some people want to say that this is a raya. But from this Rambam that we quoted before, it's a raya that the Rambam holds the pshat of mitzvah hasei shazman grama is like the one. What I want to say is that any time you have in a mitzvah that is only a specific time, even though you can't do it the whole year, it's also mitzvah shazman grama. So I mean, Pashas that's pshat and Rambam, but I saw the Aruch HaShulchan actually says a very interesting thing. Aruch HaShulchan says, he asks the Shai, what does it mean is the Reis? Akad Rambam. Is asking, what does the Rambam mean is Deraisa? We have a couple neighbor today. What does it mean that it's a mitzvah say Deraisa? So he says that actually quotes a medrash, Aruch HaShulchan, on Sim Pei that's Gimel. He says that the mitzvahs, he quotes the medrash that says that part of the reason why Sfirus Ha'emer is not only because there was an Omer, that there was the mitzvah of the Omer. It's Pashut Yidden prepared themselves for Torah. They were preparing themselves for getting ready for Tavdon al Kil Maharazah. They asked Moshe what it is. After 50 days, there's going to be Alveda. So they started preparing themselves for it. So the Rambam says that it's a mitzvah asay in the Reisa, says the Aruch HaShulchan. It's not because of the Omer, the Karban Omer. He says, yes, the Torah says it's the time to prepare yourself for Torah is between Pesach and Shavuos, but the reason why we can't do Sir Ha'emer is because he prepared himself for Sir Ha'emer. So it's taka. It's a mitzvah shazban grama that you're able to do it any time of the year. You can do it any time of the year. You prepare yourself for what Torah is. There's a special mitzvah in this volume. So maybe that's what the Alter Rebbe means. Being that everybody said some stories of the Rebbe, not only have the idea of Limud Torah, where there's a shtuk of Fabrengen, or saying stories of the Rebbe, and all my students always tell the students give a shir. I give a shir, and then I always add in a story from the Rebbe, and they waiting for it because the shliach is always going to say something. Always has to bring in a ma'aseh from the Rebbe. So bringing down the Sri Deyesh, famous story with Gershom Mendel Gerelik. Also the Kinnus Torah. There's a few years. I don't know if it's a Bavusta Ma'aseh. It's not a Bavusta Ma'aseh. I got a ride back from the oil last week with Levi Gerelik, and I asked him the details of the story. He told me the details of the story. He said that a couple of years after he went on shlichus to the land, gets a call from Rebbe Chadikov, which meant the Rebbe was telling him that he has to go to Sivan in Switzerland, where the Sir Deyesh he survived the war, and he was the Magen of the Kinnus Torah. And Gershom Mendel is like, I'm going to go to Kinnus Torah, but he understood that it's coming from the boss, so he goes. So I always heard that he asked what is he supposed to say? The Levi girl said he didn't hear that from his father, but he took a Shar Yehuda from Yehuda Eber, and he sat down and he prepared a couple different shiurim from Rabbi Yehuda Eber. He's going to get up. What is he going to say? They can call him up and say something from Yehuda Eber, who's the Rosh Yeshiva in Afot. So he prepares a couple things. So in the middle of the Kinnus Torah, somebody starts talking in Indian, and he chalish his face in the middle of his speech. They rush him to the hospital, whatever. And Punkt, the thing that he was talking about, was what Gershom prepared from Shari Yehuda, from Yehuda Eber. And first of all, he's like, what am I going to get up? After this guy says it, I'm going to get up, what am I going to add? And he was getting very nervous. But so many nisim in place in the story, so he gets up and he says, I prepared something else, but now that we can finish it, so I'm going to finish it off. And he talked to Indian. So he heard, the Shidei heard that Gershom Mendel did this. He called him in, he visited him in his hospital room. And he said, he was so excited, he was so, thank you. He was thanking him for finishing the Indian. And he told him, he says, when we had Kinnus Torah, there was always like, the day before, the day after the Kinnus Torah, there would be like the Prim. The guys would come and that's a Torah. And all the shilas that we had, we would go through each other. We talk to each other about the different stories, the different shilas in Gemara. So now, since you did this for me, I want to give you back about Tana. Any shilah you have a Shas L'Peiskim, you can ask me right now. So Gershom Mendel tells him, I have no shilas in Shas L'Peiskim. But I heard, this is a couple of years ago, I was a Bachar in 770, I was hanging out in the hallways at the night of Yechidus, and there was a guy that came in, walked in off the street, and said he wants to meet the Rebbe. And Rabbi Chadikov told him, you're not meeting the Rebbe. The Rebbe's busy. There's an Yechidus, you have to make an appointment. So he told Rabbi Chadikov, tell the Rebbe that today the Weinberg's brother-in-law, he said the name, I forgot, the lady girl told him the name, he's here. The Rebbe's going to want to see me. So Rabbi Chadikov, I guess, acquiesced, he went in, and Taka, the Rebbe wanted to see him, and had Yechidus. So he comes up, Gershom Mendel thought this was interesting, so he goes asking him. So he says, the Shidei gave the Rebbe smicha. And that's why, he gave the Rebbe smicha, so I used the Shidei's name, and I got him to see the Rebbe. So, is it true? So he asked Gershom Mendel, asked him, is it true that you gave the Rebbe smicha? And though the Kvei Torah say, why does the Rebbe need your smicha? So he laughed and he smacked him. He says, "It's true, the Rebbe doesn't need my smicha, but I'll tell you the story." It was in Berlin. A young man approached me. A young man with a full beard, which is so unique to see in Berlin. He was wearing a hat. He came to me. He says he needs credentials that he's a rabbinical student. They didn't want to access the library. The libraries in Berlin, the University of Berlin, had a lot of manuscripts and things like that. And you have to have credentials that he's a Rav, something like that. So could you give me smicha? The Rebbe asked me, could you give me credentials, give me smicha? So the Shidei is telling Gershom Mendel that, from a Yid, he needs to go to the library. I'm not going to. So he tells him, come into my house, I'll learn the Blatt Gemara with you, and I'll test you, and I'll give you smicha. So the Rebbe tells him, that's if I missed the passage. So he looks at him, he said, okay, what do you want me to test you on? He says, you just came, you're writing the journal. You wrote in a journal. He says, yeah. He had just written a whole thing about taking bones if you have to move a goof from different places. And it's a very complicated, a lot of people don't learn it. He says, yeah. So then I said, okay. Fahar me on the thing. So he told Gershom Mendel. Within a few minutes, I realized a man was his klor in Shas L'Peiskim. And it was a fageling, and just spent a few minutes with the Rebbe just to go through all the different So, finish off with a Kinnus Torah with a mice in the Rebbe. Chai.
Okay, thank you very much. Achron Chovi, we have one of our Avreiche Koil, we have a night Koil here. One of our Avreiche Koil, Rabbi Mendel Gottlieb, is a Melamed, a Rabbi in the Yeshiva in Petrimim, in the Cheder. He will speak to us about the union of learning during Kriyas HaTorah. Right after Be'ezer Hashem, we're going to have Ma'ariv.
The Frierdiker Rebbe writes that before Shavuos, the Tafresh Nunvav, the Rebbe Rashab wrote a letter about Kinnus Torah, and now he describes how they hung it up on the walls of the shul, and all the Erechim that were there, and they copied it down, and how the letter made a big relation on everyone. So the first half of the letter, the Rebbe Rashab is a nigla pull the first half, and in the gather of Kinnus Torah, and learning during Kinnus Torah, and it comes out from the Rebbe Rashab's letter a chiddush, and how to learn the mechaber on this din. So try to give a little background and understand what the Rebbe Rashab is talking about. So the Gemara in Brachas, the beginning of Brachas, in the Afkas, it says a few dinim about Kinnus Torah. So one din it says that Amar Rav Huna by Yehuda, Amar Rav Menachem, Amar Rav Ami. It says, what does it mean? The pasuk it says, Eizvei Hashem Yichlu. That this refers to someone who walks out in the middle of Kinnus Torah. So Maniach Sefer Torah Shu Pasuach Yetz. You're not allowed to walk out in the middle of Kinnus Torah. Then the Gemara says that Rebavo Nafak Ben Gavra Legavra. Between Elias, Rebavo would walk out. That's okay. In the middle of Kinnus Torah, you're not allowed to walk out. But between Elias, it's fine. Then the Gemara asks, what about in between Psukim? Boida Papa Ben Psukim Psukim Mao. How do you walk out in the middle of Psukim? It explains that in those days, every pasuk they would translate. So, B'shas Targum, are you allowed to walk out? So the Gemara says, take it. Then the Gemara brings from Rav Sheshes, Mahadir Ape V'Gardes, that Rav Sheshes would turn his face and he would learn, B'shas, the Pasha during Kinnus Torah. Amar Anan B'didan V'inu B'didu. We're doing what we're doing, they're doing what they're doing. I'm learning, they're reading the Torah. So Taisvis over here, and many Rishonim ask, how is Rav Sheshes allowed to learn during Kinnus Torah? The Gemara in Seita that says, Amar Rav Bar Huna, the Gris is Amar Rav Bar Huna, Kevon Sheniftach Sefer Torah, once you open the Sefer Torah, Asher L'Saper, Afilu B'Dvar Halacha, you're not allowed to talk even in Halacha. And we bring a pasuk that says in Nehemiah, describing how Ezra used to read the Torah on Rosh Hashanah and gathered all the Yidden in the beginning of the Vaysheni, and it says that when he read the Torah, V'Pischai Amdu Kol Ha'am. And the Gemara explains that Amdu here doesn't mean that the people stood, it means that the people were quiet. Ein Amida El Shtika. We bring a pasuk from Iyv to prove it. It says Echalti Ki Lo Yedaberu Ki Amdu Lo Amroid. And there Amdu means they were quiet. That's one raya. They're not allowed to speak. And then the Gemara brings a second raya. Reb Zera, Reb Chizda, Mehacha, V'Ozne Kalam La Sefer HaTorah. In the same parak in Nehemiah, it also describes that everyone was listening to the Torah. If everyone was listening, they weren't talking. So how is Rav Sheshes allowed to learn during Kinnus Torah? Gemara doesn't seem that anybody argues on this. So Taisus asks the Kash in Brachas, Taisus asks the Kash in Seita, Taisus gives three answers in Seita, three answers in Brachas, different answers. And B'chlalis among the Rishonim, many of the Rishonim bring this Kasha, and they bring different answers. B'chlalis there's 5 answers. And say, 3 of them are very klolistic hatayim, and 2 of them are very pratistic hatayim. So, one answer is that when it says you're not allowed to learn, it means you're not allowed to learn loud. L'sapet means you're not allowed to learn loud. But quietly, you're allowed to learn. Rav Sheshes was learning quietly. Turned his face, nobody should hear him. Others say, the Bahag, the Balach Zvela says, you're allowed to, if there's 10 people listening, it's okay, you're allowed to learn. So Rav Sheshes made sure there were 10 people listening, he turned his face, they shouldn't count him, and he learned. Others say that if you start learning before they read the Torah, it's okay. So Rav Sheshes, he turned around, he was already learning, and he said, I'm already learning. Those are very broad hatayim. Another answer is that Rav Sheshes was allowed to learn because he was blind. The Gemara says Rav Sheshes was blind, and says someone was blind, he can't learn Torah Sheb'al Ksav, he can't say Baal Peh, and so since he wasn't reading Torah Sheb'al Ksav, he said he's part of him Kinnus Torah, And therefore he's saying, Anam b'tidan, v'inu b'tidu, I'm doing Teresh Ba'aveh, they're doing Teresh B'Ksav. Fifth answer from the Rif, that Reb Sheshes was allowed because Teirasa Im Nasi. Since Reb Sheshes all the time learning Torah, he was allowed to learn. Actually, the Kesef Mishnah brings that it's not Shat Teirasa Im Nasi Mamash like the Shem Reichai, but someone that his whole life is learning Torah. So these are Bechlolos, the five answers which are many Rishonim bring, and so they bring why they like this one over that one, and what's the Milos and Chsenos of each answer. So either it's quietly, there's already 10 people, you started before, he was blind, or Teirasa Im Nasi. But there's a Shaila that according to all Tirutzim, Sarachian, is why did the Gemara in Satan not mention this heter the way we explained Rav Sheshes? The Gemara l'chayra should have said also l'saper, but the balachash muter, or if there's yud the taisi, the 10 people listening is muter, or Teirasa Im Nasi muter. The Gemara in Satan makes it sound like there's no heter. Always awesome. So we'll see how we're going to answer this question. The Rambam brings us down, and in Hilchos Tefillah Perek Yubeit Halacha Tes, the Rambam passes like the Rif, and the Rambam says that once you start Kinnus Torah, you're not allowed to talk, and then the Rambam says that if someone is Teirasa Im Nasi, he is allowed to continue learning. When you look in Shulchan Aruch, it seems that the Mechaber goes a little bit different. The Mechaber starts off in Sivan Kufman and Erechaim Sivan Kufman Vav Siv Beis. The Mechaber starts off that Kevon Shehizchel Akeda Likris B'Sefer Torah also l'saper afilu b'Divrei Torah. You're not allowed to speak. And then the Mechaber says V'yesh Matirim Likris B'Lacha. Some people are matir quietly. V'yesh Sheimrim, that there's 10 people that are listening, it's mutter. V'yesh Matirim for someone to Teirasa Im Nasi. V'yesh Matirim, if you started before, they started reading the Torah. So first of all, so the Mechaber brings 4 out of the 5 answers. Which one are we passing like? It just means 4 Yesh Imrim. It doesn't say which one are we passing. And that Teirim are, I mean, Akatza L'Katza. If it's Teirasa Im Nasi, it applies to almost to nobody. It means no one's allowed to learn Kinnus Torah. If it's quietly, it applies to everyone. Everyone's allowed to. So the Hateirim of when you're allowed to learn is Mamish Min Akatza L'Katza. Also, the Mechaber starts off with that it's awesome. And only then does he say V'yesh Matirim. But it sounds like the beginning that he's passing that it's awesome. The first day is that it's awesome. Then he brings the Yeshayim that it's a mutter. But what is this day that there's no heter? It sounds like the way it's written that there's the first opinion is there's no heter. From all the Yeshayim we see there's a heter. The question is what's the heter? But it doesn't seem from anyone to say that there's no heter at all. Everyone puts the Gemara with Reb Sheshes together that there's one heter, whatever the heter is. But from the Mechaber, it sounds like the first opinion is there's no heter. So what's this opinion? So the Rebbe Shab starts going through this, and the Rebbe Shab says, first of all, based off the Klolim, the Yad Malachi and the Kloli of Ahara Paskin Shulchan Aruch, when the Mechaber brings more than one Yeshoimar, so we Paskin like the second one, and based off the different Klolim, it comes out that the Mechaber is saying that you have to have all the conditions. You have to start, if you want to learn during Kinnus Torah, number one, you have to start before. And you have to be Teirasa Im Nasi. And there has to be 10 people that are listening, and it has to be quiet. Now, since from Poyel Mamish, there's Man Hazeh, there's Miyuta that are Teirasa Im Nasi, so in practical, there's no heter, because you need to also be Teirasa Im Nasi. So therefore, the Mechaber started off, it's also, because in practically speaking, there's no heter. Then, the Rebbe Rashab says right and says a big chiddush. There's actually another answer. There's an answer in Achreinim, which is a big chiddush, which is happened from all the Rishonim. There's an answer, it's brought in the Chidah brings it, the Sefer Birkei Yosef, that when Reb Sheshes learned he didn't learn during Kriyas HaTorah. And the Gemara bringing Rav Sheshes behemshich to the Shaila of Boy the Papa. That the Papa asked, Bein Psuka L'Psuka Mau, that B'shas the Targum, are you allowed to walk out of shul? And the Gemara said, thank you. And behemshich to that, the Rav Sheshes said, the Gemara brings, Rav Sheshes learned, Bein Psuka L'Psuka. B'shas the Targum, Rav Sheshes learned. Not during Kriyas HaTorah. During Kriyas HaTorah, he didn't learn. Bein Psuka L'Psuka, we don't know if you're allowed to leave, but the Gemara brings the Maisa that Rav Sheshes used to learn. And therefore, the Gemara didn't bring this din of Rav Sheshes in Saita, where we says, you're not allowed to talk during Kriyas HaTorah, or learn during Kriyas HaTorah. Because there's no have to learn during Kriyas HaTorah. And that's the day that the Mechaber is bringing, the first day that it's also to learn, according to this answer. Even though it's an answer Mechudesh, which is Cheder Neged all the Rishonim, and it's actually brought the Chidah brings them Sefer Kinnus Torah, who wrote to the person who gave this answer, Shaklataya, who is the person who gave this answer. It's born a Sefer Chemdes Yamim, the Shaila is if he was the one who wrote it, but the Kinnus Torah writes of the person that who's asking him for Haskama on his answer, and he says that you want to be Machmer, Tavi Lacha Bracha, but Cheder goes against all the Rishonim, and we have to go against all the Rishonim, but the Chidah brings that the Chacham Tzvi saw this answer, and he said it's an emes answer, and he liked the answer very much. Derech Agav, a number of Achreinim bring that Talmidim Rechaim Volozhin bring that also that he was Mushabech this answer, and he said it's a Teretz Amiti. But the Rebbe Rashab says that this is Pshat Mechaber. The Mechaber gehalten this Teret, and that's why the Mechaber started off with the stam that it's awesome. And then the Rebbe Rashab said this is all the Divrei Torah. But to speak to Kriyas Torah Milda Alma, then Vadi Yisr Gomer. And then the Rebbe Rashab brings from the Zoyar about and from the Shalah and Yesh Laharich, but running out of time. But just finish off that the Frierdiker Rebbe brings that on the second day of Shavuos that Gershon Dave Pahared was by the Rebbe Rashab, and he thanked him for the Yisraelus that he created by the Chassidim for Kriyas HaTorah. And the Rebbe Rashab said that the emes of thank you is when it comes to Peil Mamish. And he said, Barer HaDover, that anyone who hears Kriyas HaTorah Kil Chasa, is besides the fact that you're Mekayim the Mitzvah Hashem, the Etzeh Inyan HaKavod, that you're Mechaber the Torah, is the Torah is Me'er Rachman on him and on Anshe Beisei, Beruchni is Am Gashmis.
First of all, thank you very much to the Rabbonim that came special to share with us in the Torah. Especially Shakoyach to all the Mishtadfim that came to hear all the Inyan Torah. And the Yimit Hashem that from here we should go from Mechar L'Choyl, Limud HaTorah, Kabbalah HaTorah, V'Simchu V'Pnimius. Also want to mention that quickly before Maidim, once I need to mention the names of the people who sponsored today's Kinnus. So you have Yossi Kabas in honor of his father's Yortzeit today, Avram Meir Ben Nissim, and the Mendel Gottlieb, his sister's Yortzeit, Chaimushka Bas Revosh Zali Golei HaSholem, and the Yortzeit of the Zayd of Reuven Lev, Sholem Friedel Ben Shapsi. Okay, so we're going to dump Maidim now. Oh, and also I want to mention our special Mazel Tov. Label Fine had a Obsherish today. The son had an Obsherish. Mazel Tov. Okay, Maidim, and then we'll say L'chaim for all the Inyan.